In the previous post, we were working through a problem that a GK Plus user had with line weights. I'd like to follow that up a little, and I'll draw your attention to Chapter 7 in the user guide. And there we publish some sort of general rules that you can apply when working through line thickness. So we suggest when you're drafting, that is doing the design, just leave format line weights set at the default. Leave the line weight property of any new entity like line or polyline that you add to the default, which is just layer. In other words, don't change anything, leave it at by layer. In contrast, in your title block, there you can play with a set of line thicknesses, but set them so that they work on your most common sheet size, be it A3, architectural, C, or so on. At the end of the job, when you finish the design, you may have a relatively few group of lines or polylines in the drawing that need emphasis, like the site boundaries and the house footprint. So move those to a separate, rather special layer and set the thicknesses of that layer in the layers box. Then if you do need to print a larger sheet, all you need to do is change the thickness setting of the special layers that you've created, and possibly even the default line thickness, and finally print a check plot. So that's just reminding you of the rules. So let's look at a practical example. In this particular design, the majority of elements here, we've just followed the rules. If I pick this line here, which is a polyline, notice its line weight is just set by default. The same applies here to some hatching. It's default. Virtually everything in this drawing is drawn by default, which is how GK Plus works. There are some entities in the drawing which are showing thick. You may notice the glass pool fence. And if I select that line there, note that its line weight is now not by default, but it's being determined by layer. So if we go here to a layer called fence, its colour's been set to 161 and the thickness to 1 millimetre. Very thick, and I'm exaggerating things. Notice two other thick layers, one called pool and one called dwelling. So I'll cancel from there. The names don't mean much, but if we now look at the pool and select it, the same will apply there. It has line weight by layer, and I'll remind you, whereas everything else here is a polyline, it's just the default. And the same applies if we move up to the dwelling. Here's another polyline that's on a particular layer called dwelling, and its line weight is set by layer. So in this drawing, three entities, the dwelling, the pool fence, and the pool, have all been put onto their own layer and a colour and line weight associated with that layer. And that will have an impact when we go to print. Everything other than those three items will be printed with whatever is the current line thickness. And if we go to format and line weights, the current line thickness is the default of 0.25 of a millimetre, or if we moved to the metric system, 0.01 of an inch. Well, let's now print the design and hope that we get the line weight effect that we want. I'll move to an A3 size sheet. So here's our full design. I've got line weight switch on, and I'm going to print that to a PDF file. So file and print, and I'm using the Bullzip PDF printer, 600 dots per inch, and I'm going to print paper. I'm fitting it to the paper. I do have a scale incorporated within it, so that should work well. So I'll simply say print, and what I hope to see are the line weights appearing and give us a nice print with a range of weights to give us increased definition. Here is the result. I'll go full screen and I'll zoom in a little, and then we can pan down. So I hope you can see already there's the thick line around the dwelling. As I pan up, we've got a thick line around the glass frame for the pool fence and a thicker line around the pool itself. The title block's also got a slightly thicker border around the outside. So we're printing a range of line weights within this particular drawing. Well, just to recap, we've set the line thickness of the dwelling at 0.5, the fence at 1, and the pool at 0.5. If we now cancel from there and go into an A2 size sheet, so we're pumping the sheet size up, what I'll now do is print PDF, and you'll find the lines are finer because you're going on to a much bigger sheet. The way to correct for that would be to simply go in here and just change that thickness. But I'll print this drawing onto the A2 sheet, leaving those current settings. So the take-home lesson, of course, is you develop most of your design work on a sheet that you're comfortable with, the sheet size that you would print and give to a particular client, and get the thicknesses of lines that you want to emphasize set appropriately. Well, I changed my paper size to A2 and then printed, and I've zoomed in here on the PDF file, and we have our line thicknesses and our definition, but the difference between the line around the dwelling and the other lines is not as pronounced as it was on the smaller sheet. Well, for the previous plot or print, I did not have that scale line weights box ticked, so I'm now going to tick it and say OK, and we'll see what result we get. Here's the result. So you get a much better result when you tick that scale the line weights box. So we really don't have to do too much in the way of adjustments if we tick that box. So I hope that gives a pretty comprehensive view of managing line weights in the GCAD Plus environment.